emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 398.AC2810, certificate number 42952. The EGOT.
Well, who's an EGOT?
EGOT is not a person, TJ. It's a goal. It stands for Emmy, a Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. 4 awards that Thomas planned on winning in his career.
That's a good goal for a talented, crazy person.
Let me preemptively say I'm pretty sure we've talked to EGOT before. I have no idea when, but someone will tell us.
Were we talking about Tracy Jordan and his pursuit of the EGOT?
You're always talking about 30 Rock.
I try.
And I know we've talked about award stuff before because we've done I used to watch
Right.
I care more about the Oscars than any straight man in America. And you have I just saw it upstairs. You have your oxygen in the shape of a Grammy.
Yeah.
Your negative space of a Grammy packing case.
We've
upstairs.
surely taltalked about that.
I know that's come up before.
Yeah,
but,
I do.
But the Grammys are, for those listening in this time frame, the Grammys are coming up this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I thought,
what better way?
Let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate the hard work of all the best spoken word and best instrumental jazz nominees.
Have you, I'm still bucking for a Latin Grammy. Have you attended an awards show?
Well, that's something else that has happened between the last time we all told our award stories. Because I think at the time I had those BS daytime Emmys that annoyed you.
All the people that have daytime Emmys, which includes like everyone that works at the Seattle channel, is so offended when you imply that a daytime Emmy is not a real Emmy.
Well, we're going to talk about the different levels of show business awards over the next hour and change for sure. But in my case, they're not BS because they're daytime Emmys, although that doesn't help. It's not like All My Children and 60 Minutes are the same thing.
But none of them are personal, right? They're all like for the writing or something.
Yeah, and every single person with a producer credit on Jeopardy got the Outstanding Game Show statuette because the daytime Emmys actually are funded by charging studios per statuette. So my boss had to pay for me to get a nice Emmy, even though my producer credit is just a formality.
Yeah, you walked into the room at one point.
Yeah, it was in my deal. And he'll be a consulting producer. What does that even mean? He wants consulting producer instead of consultant. It's no more money? Okay, fine.
No, it's more money when we have to buy him an Emmy.
Every year it's whatever an Emmy, which is probably exorbitant.
They're at least
if you told
$900.
Me, if you told me this Emmy is $980, I'd be like, jeez, okay.
Well, I have some stories about this whole world, but I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you cook over there, Ken. And then
have you ever been to an award show?
No.
I had never either.
No, and still you haven't?
Yeah, no. I was at the Creative Arts Emmys a couple months ago.
Is that a sub Emmy?
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not. It's part of the Primetime Emmys, but there are so many Emmys now that. No one wants to see. Well, no one wants to see any of them on TV. But in the interest of a TV audience, there's now like a 2-hour gala that gets televised where it's like, is Kevin Costner going to win Outstanding Actor for Yellowstone? Like, here are stars and shows you actually have heard of. But that leaves hundreds of awards. Even if you leave out the international Emmys, the daytime Emmys,
which I do.
I think there's regional Emmys, right? Like if you walk into Como, aren't there a bunch of Emmys for nothing?
And that's another thing. Like, of course, you and I have both been to all the local TV stations, and you walk by their glass cases full of Emmys, and you're like, these can't all be Emmys.
Like what?
Emmys.
Como, Cairo? How did you beat? How did you beat the Cosby
WGN.
Show? Or yeah, exactly. Like you're not. This must be some different playing field, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's so nice to have a thing. It's so it really does make people feel good. And I think if you worked at Como, if you were an anchor who worked in television for 40 years,
you're getting recognized at Ernst every couple of weeks.
And I'm sure there are lots of like Seattle Weekly's best anchor. Like you'd have certificates piled up.
But they're not trophies. They're probably little faux wood plaques with brass rectangles on them.
They're like my Phony Awards.
You have Phony Awards? You've won a Phony?
So
Phony Award winner.
Whatever, 10 years ago on my other podcast, Roderick on the Line, my first podcast, I was complaining about this very thing because there are now podcast awards. There are all kinds of creator, content maker, internet.
Not for us.
Not for us.
No poddies and webbies for Omnibus.
And at the time, I was like, because Roderick on the Line was not the first generation of podcasts, but we certainly were early, and were acclaimed among a certain small audience.
Small but vocal.
And I said, why did we not even get nominated for one of these podcast awards? I would like an award that looks like a pair of headphones, and it's called the Phony Award for having phones. And the next time Roderick on the Line did a live show, an audience member came up and presented us both with gold-painted headphones on a mounted on a plaque with our names, etched in it.
DIY? Do you think he bought gold paint to?
For sure.
Yeah.
And then every time we did a live show in San Francisco, he would come up with that year's Phony Award. And so I do have them around here, but my sister cleaned up the new bunker, and I don't see my Phony Awards.
They did not make the cut.
Well, no, but they're in some box. She didn't throw anything away.
In addition to all those sub Emmys, there are just hundreds of regular primetime Emmys that are not given out on the telecast anymore that have now been relegated to kind of a AAA Emmys called the Creative Arts Emmys.
The Extreme Teen Emmys.
Yeah, exactly. No, they are like less extreme. There's so many of them that they are given on 2 consecutive nights.
But is it in the same venue? Does it feel like an Emmy?
It does. It feels like you're in an award show. Yes. There's a red carpet outside. They're giving, people are eagerly waiting to hear their category. The only difference is there's literally 100 categories, and it's for things like, it's for all the genres that are not going to be, nobody cares about in primetime. So it's like, here's PBS documentaries, here's animated stuff, here's music and variety. And sometimes the categories will span them all. So it'll be like outstanding sound editing in a variety, music, comedy, or live special. And it'll be like somebody's HBO stand-up special is up against a documentary about the Armenian genocide and SNL and the Oscars and like Beyonce's tour movie.
Oh, you're talking about the Oscars television program.
Yes, not the Oscars can win Emmys.
Wow.
And often do.
Whoa, blowing my mind. The Oscars, but the Emmys can't win an Oscar?
The Emmys could never, well, if you made a documentary about the Emmys, but then the Emmys themselves, the people who produced the documentary, not the people who produced the Emmys, would get the Oscar.
Right.
And that explains why on the way in, like the person going in the door ahead of me is Jimmy Kimmel. And I said hi because I've met him before.
Because you guys are celebs.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
No,
what's up, celebs?
Don't you know the Curb Your Enthusiasm rule that celebs cannot say hi to each other until they've been introduced by an intermediary?
Is that right?
It's implied on Curb. Larry says hi to, I can't remember, some comedy legend who then gets annoyed. Oh, it's Conan. Larry says hi to Conan. And Conan's like, you can't do that. There's a code. You got to wait till somebody introduces us.
Oh, interesting.
But Jimmy I had met once, and I said, hey, how'd you get out of hosting this thing? And he's like, are you kidding? This is the Creative Arts Emmys. They're lucky I'm They're lucky I'm even here.
Right. So that's my question. How many celebrities are actually at the Are you and Jimmy Kimmel like topping out?
On the way in, I saw Ellie Kemper from The Office. I chatted with her for a bit, because they need people to give out awards.
Oh, sure.
And some people will win, for hosting something. So it'll be a named person. I was not seated with the other Jeopardy nominees. I was sitting down front with the, people whose faces would be seen on camera and who might have to go up to collect an award.
When you say on camera, they are filming it, but for what?
They're going to produce, I think it'll be online, and then an edited version is going to get packaged for,
overseas.
For
Asia.
For the Moldovan audience. No, I think it airs on some cable channel, like a week later, Bravo or something is going to show a half-hour edited version of this.
It's the C-SPAN of Emmys.
If it was C-SPAN, they would show the whole thing. In this case, they're just showing the highlights. An outstanding game show host did make the cut, I hear, but I did not win.
Was it Pat Sajak for the 40th time?
No, I think it was Pat, but I'm not sure he's ever won. Somebody can check the Emmys, but
You're kidding.
Well, because Alex would just beat him every year.
Well, that's right. So when I visited the Jeopardy studios, there were Emmys
there's
in the glass case.
dozens of Emmys.
But were those all Alex's?
I think Alex may have brought some, but a lot of those were just outstanding game show. And there was when it was under the daytime Emmys, which it no longer is, Jeopardy won a lot of writing Emmys, I think. So some of those are for the writers.
But that's writing the questions, not your hilarious banter.
No, boy, if only there were an Emmy for mild game show banter. The Pat had never won, I believe. And sorry, Sajak heads, if I'm wrong, please let us know. But he had retired, and he was not there. He never,
Oh wait, so in
absentia?
Was this one of those weird career Emmys where it's like, congratulations for a long career?
But it's not like he won for the wrong movie. It's not like Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. It's really like, we know you're on your way out. Right. And I knew I wasn't going to win. And our award was the game show awards were all super early. And then it was just an array of just the craziest stuff. Like there was an Emmy given out for basically those making of EPKs, like those press kits that used to appear on DVDs where it would be like, here's some behind the scenes look at this movie or the new season of.
Well, they do that now. They do that now with these syndicated or these serial television shows. Stay tuned for the behind the scenes, right? Which I definitely don't want to watch.
Well, I always turn it off. I forget it's there, but sometimes you look at the running time and you're like, why is House of the Dragon an hour and 50? Oh, right. There's some post game chat.
Listening to all the people that make the show talk about making the show does not improve the show.
Well, there's an Emmy for that. And it means some guy had his dream come true and went up on that stage and enthusiastically got to say, it meant so much for me to make this behind the scenes thing about the Dolly Parton concert. And I'd like to thank you, I'd like to thank, my whole crew and Ted and Ravi and Elaine, and you guys are and for them, it's a real thing. But, the time limits are very tightly policed at this thing because there are so many awards. This thing, and it really runs like clockwork. You're just amazed at what you're seeing.
Is there a band that plays them off, or is it it's music in a box?
I believe there was music in a box. There's no live orchestra budget at night one of two because there was a whole second night at the same theater the next night after I had left town where they were going to give out other genres of borderline pseudo semi TV.
Right.
And. But it was fun. My agent was like, yeah, I'll come. And then he was like, oh, is your award Friday or Saturday? He's like, yeah, I'm not coming twice. Sorry.
Whoa.
But I was sitting in the same row as Dick Van Dyke.
Hey.
Because he was getting,
he's an enormous star.
His special, you don't get an Emmy every time you turn 99, but he had a big special.
Right. I remember.
He can still sing and dance and hang out with Coldplay and things.
Sure.
So it kind of had the fun of going to an award show in that you could see the mechanics of it. I was sitting, but you could also see you could see behind the veneer very easily. I was sitting next to Phil Kogan, the guy who hosts The Amazing Race. And he was like, yeah, I gotta deliver. And he was lovely and very down to earth. He's Kiwi. We chatted a bit. He goes up to deliver his category, never comes back.
Went out the back door.
That guy was in his car 7 minutes after giving the outstanding editing of a reality or variety series or whatever.
Well, I mean, I can't decide whether it would be more fun to be a big wheel at a minor Emmy event, or to be at an Emmy event where you were seated in row Z, but way up there, Kevin Costner, you got to see him stand up, and and Beyonce was there. Like, which is the better experience?
It does kind of feel like you're the big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, you were up in row, what, B?
I was literally in the third row because my category was so early. But
Yeah.
they needn't have bothered because I didn't have to go up there.
No, but you were there. I'm sure the camera panned across you.
I'm sure they showed me dutifully clapping for all the nominees. I hope it was the 5 thing where you see all 5 of the nominees.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because then when Pat Sajak wins, they'll see me kind of nod like, what a just decision by
Yes.
the Creative Arts Emmys voters.
He deserved it.
Mr. Sajak.
Even though a solitary tear probably ran down your cheek.
Yes, probably. But about an hour in, after seeing this endless array of like 45-minute hurried speeches about variety and reality shows I did not remember or care about, my friend texted me and is like, "Hey, all the Simpsons guys are out here at the bar. Like, where are you?" And so I just bailed during a commercial.
Oh, so you bailed too?
I'd spent the last hour plus at the bar.
Yeah, hanging out with the cool kids, the Simpsons writers.
You know, I was probably
Cool.
arguably sitting with the cooler kids, but I wanted to sit with the bad boys at the back of the bus.
Yeah, that's right.
So I went out to the bar.
That's right. The not on camera people that actually have like funny things to say.
That's kind of true.
Yeah.
And some of them were like, "Oh, and you're on the staff. I know you from the Twitter days, and now you write for Simpsons." And then they introduced me to the Marvel TV guys.
Hey.
And I was like, "Hey, how does that work? Is streaming really profitable?" And he's like, "We don't know." When I ask my boss, "Do you need Marvel TV for this to pencil out?" They say, "Yes, we still do." And so that's good news for me.
Yeah, that's right.
So I had a good time at an award show, but I think maybe now I have to go every year.
Oh.
Like in perpetuity, it seems very likely that there's just not that many game show hosts.
But it does feel like you'll never get bumped up to the big time, the actual televised show, or is there a way that you would find your way up there?
No, not at all. Because,
Yeah.
outstanding game show host is just not a category that, for a reason, anybody wants to see
It's so
given
funny,
in prime time.
and what it reflects is that there didn't used to be that many television shows.
Yes.
So
The first Emmys, 1948, you know how many awards were given out?
how many?
1.
Was it to Lucille Ball?
It was like there was hardly any TV in 1948. I'm sure it's
1948.
Yeah, it's probably some 90-minute teleplay.
Yeah, exactly. A vaudeville person was like, he has a voice.
Right.
We've never heard him speak before.
Well, there were movies. there had been 20 years of sound movies.
Right.
But yes, there's been a vast explosion in the amount of back patting that goes on at an awards ceremony.
Right.
And you don't want to exclude people. Like, why is there an Emmy? It happens at the Oscars. Why do the stunt performers not get recognized? Why? And so then the question becomes, should there be more awards, or does that just devalue the Oscars or make the telecast boring? Or,
Right.
because an award ceremony is many things.
Yeah.
It's a TV event, but
Don't
it's
want
also...
it to be 8 hours long.
And that's the thing. If you were to watch all the Emmys back to back, it would now be, including international and daytime and local, it would be 12 hours. It would be Berlin Alexanderplatz, the Emmys.
Have you ever had an Oscars watching party or gone to a party where people were watching an award show?
Yeah, I think we either host or attend one every year for the Oscars.
For the Oscars.
Because I grew up like watching every award show that the Army would put on TV in Korea.
Right.
And that meant I didn't know most of the Tony nominees unless I'd seen them in the Macy's parade, the only place you could see Broadway back then.
And did you watch the Jerry Lewis telethon?
I don't think we ever got the telethon.
We watched the telethon.
Was
in
this
the
event
70s.
viewing for you, like watching these award shows? Were you like, because we would even watch the crappy ones. We'd be like, oh, Dick Clark's competing music awards are on, whatever those are called, the DCCMA.
I was never in my life really so much of a media consumer or came from a family of media consumers that I can recall. We definitely used to watch the Democratic National Convention, but
I think you were just a different type of TV consumer.
Yeah, right. I don't. We did watch the Jerry Lewis telethon, but that was a variety show, and so you got to see Jerry Lewis, with a solitary tear. talking about.
But the 5 songs during the Oscars did not cut it for you, the Roderick household?
I definitely have watched an Oscars. I watched some Grammy Awards. I was on the Grammy board.
Right.
You know, the Grammy Awards the Grammys are actually an awards show. That is where all the money comes from. But the Grammy organization thinks of itself as a nonprofit that helps musicians, that, you know, they do a lot of work. And the regions of the United States are divided up, and there's a regional Grammys. It's not that there are regional Grammy awards, but the Grammy organization has a Northwest chapter, has a Los Angeles chapter, has a Nashville chapter. And the Grammys do all this work. It's a year-round organization. And so I was on the Grammy board for years, 6 years up here. There were other people on the board that had actually won Grammys for writing hit songs for Heart or for playing in, you know, Michael Aronson or Hagar Aronson Shreve. What was the HSAS? I don't know. It wasn't Santana. Whatever.
What genre of supergroup is this even?
It was like 80s hard rock.
Okay.
Aronson Shreve.
It was an acronym?
Yeah, no.
There's a Sammy Hagar acronymic supergroup I've never heard of.
It was the 4 names, and but there are so many listeners who are like, "Oh, you're forgetting the guitar player from Journey." But anyway, so there were Grammy winners around the table, and also Latin Grammy winners and whatnot.
But not enough to fill out a quorum. So you were.
Yeah, I was like one of the local guys. And so we talked about the Grammys all the time, Grammy Awards, you know, floating around me in space. But it was very clear to everybody that I was never going to win a Grammy Award. Or
They were always saying this to you?
If I did, it was going to be a very weird, like, side quest.
So did you have to order lunch? You're the guy passing around Sweet Green's menus?
No, you know me. I walked in there like I'd won 1,000 Grammy Awards, and I was accepted. And I often would MC their events. And so I'd be I'd be up there in a tuxedo with a comically large bow tie.
You're me. You're the big fish in the small pond.
That's right. And I'd be like, everyone gather around. And, you know, and he won a Grammy Award for a classical composition. And and there are people up here, of course, who have won Grammys, although not the ones you would think, right? I don't know. Like the guys in the Presidents of the USA often will introduce themselves as 2-time Grammy-losing artists, the Presidents of the USA. So there were a lot of bands that you've heard of up here, but they didn't actually, you know, it ended up that Jethro Tull won Best Metal Album that year instead
over Presidents?
Yeah. Well, but so I never went to the Grammys, but I talked about the Grammys a lot.
You're embedded in Grammy culture.
And being on the board, as you know, being on the board of presumably SIF, or you must have been on boards.
I'm on a board or two.
I end up on boards, and you know, I'm the guy that does no work.
Hey,
they put me on the board in order to have me on the board, and not because I'm ever going to be the one that somebody points at and goes, "Here's your task."
I feel like I'm constantly apologizing for this, and I know you are not.
No. I
like,
know why I'm
sorry,
there.
guys, I'm out of town again. Somebody else is going to have to be on that committee. Ugh.
But I do have a lot of awards that aren't phony awards, but they are definitely all in the category of plaque.
They're local achievements,
there are
the runner-up kinds of things.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like a participation award.
The thing you said about the Grammys, that it's not just an annual telecast, but it's an industry organization. You know, that's true of all these awarding bodies, and in particular, it's true of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. We kind of think of having grown up in this culture where it was inevitable that categorized that artists would be dueling in kind of genre and job specific categories in prime time several times a year. We think of this as like an inevitable part of culture. And in fact, that's not true. This idea of big splashy awards nights was not inevitable. It was kind of an accident.
Oh, really?
And we're living in maybe the only time in Earth's history where this wouldn't have been thought of as weird. That if you think of the first Oscars were given in 1929, it was a live gala at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood, which is still there. It's you know, kind of kitty corner from Grauman's Chinese in the middle of all the tourist stuff and all the new shopping in the middle of Hollywood. It's a beautiful old hotel. And the weird thing about that first banquet is I think the winners had been announced months earlier.
Oh,
So there was a little less suspense at the first Oscars.
and the Oscars now, the whole reason you watch is the suspense, right?
Yes. And but also the fashion, over the decades, it turned into an event. But back then, there were no real antecedents for this. It wasn't like, hey, now that the movies are kind of new and legit, let's do the kind of splashy awards nights they do in other fields. There weren't really big nights like this. There were no industry equivalents of the Oscars. The first film festival was not until later in the 30s. I think Venice is like mid 30s. So it's not like it was analogous to the Palme d'Or. The Tonys were later. Tonys were 47. So there were like kind of informal drama league type awards, but the real precedence I think would have been maybe like juried art shows.
Yeah.
Of the Paris Salon and up, 17th century and up.
That's right.
Because that is a case where you have different categories of, here are the oil paintings, here are the landscapes, here are the bronzes.
Or like awards for wine.
Oh, that's true.
Right? They're surely all those gold medals that get given out to wine and beer.
Well, I guess by 29, you have the Pulitzers and the Nobels. You have rich
Nobels.
people and also governments. You have the Order of the British Empire being given to I think at this time, people who had distinguished themselves even in the arts.
The Star of Bombay. But that would have been that goes back to, are you a member of the Order of the Garter?
Right. So that's all dating back to chivalry. But it's, those are a little bit different. Those are not an industry being like, let's celebrate us as an industry. It's really one rich person being like, I want to leave some money to support, in Pulitzer's case, in Nobel's case, scientific achievement, in Pulitzer's case, journalism. It's a private legacy. They weren't really trophies. I mean, the idea of medals and laurels goes back to the ancients, goes back to classical times, right? But I think if you had asked somebody at the first Oscars who gets a gold trophy, they would have associated it with like sports.
Oh,
Because there already was
a cup.
Every year a Wimbledon Cup and a claret jug at the Open in Scotland. And I think the Stanley Cup already existed.
Yeah, well, the sailboat race, the
America's Cup, first international sporting trophy, dates back to the 19th century as well. But the fact that there was one of these in the movie industry when there really hadn't been in any, there wasn't, say, in the theater or in opera, it's just kind of a political accident dating back to Louis B. Mayer,
of course,
one of the co-founders of MGM. And on January 11th, 1927, he met with maybe a few hundred other kind of industry bigwigs in all fields, actors, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, and directors and craftsmen are all there. This one's not at the Roosevelt. This is at the Ambassador Hotel.
Which you've been to.
Well, it got torn down, right? Like,
were you ever there?
I've seen RFK footage in the kitchen. Like, it became like at the time and for decades it was, the Coconut Grove was there, so it was the big Hollywood hangout. But
right.
I don't think I ever went there before it was demolished in the 2000s. Maybe when did they? Anyway, it's a place
it was 2005 or 6, and I certainly,
there?
I went there in the 90s.
Place where Bobby Kennedy was shot, maybe most famously. But the reason why Mayer got this meeting together was he said we should have an organization that crosses all these.
Wait a minute, I went there, but it was closed.
You must have been so disappointed.
Well, it's
You're
not
outside.
like I would have walked around it, but I did.
Hello?
It was one of these it was the first 5 times I went to the Magic Castle. It was just that I stood on the stairs, because you're not invited in. But I think I went there and I did peer in the windows.
Your dad was like a Bobby Kennedy guy. You think they'd let you in the kitchen?
Well, my dad and Bobby Kennedy didn't get along. My dad worked for JFK.
Oh, your dad was on the...
Yeah, he was part of the election team.
Was your dad on somebody's campaign in 68 or not?
No.
Oh,
in 68, he had lost the election for Washington, state's attorney, and he already had his eyes set on Alaska by that point.
He had moved on.
Yeah.
As so many of us do when things go wrong in our lives.
Yes.
He was looking to Alaska.
But in 1960, he was with them across the country, and he said that Bobby and he didn't see eye to eye because Bobby was, prone to kicking down hotel doors. And my dad would have been if he'd had the power. But he
wasn't allowed to.
No, he was jealous of Bobby's
the same reason most of us don't kick down hotel rooms. We would get in trouble.
If you're the president's brother, you have a better chance of it.
Yeah, they're not even going to say anything. I mean, they'll probably put you in a different room next time, but I don't know if there's anything we talk about on Omnibus as much as, well, maybe old-timey airplanes.
Yep.
But in second place, possibly Miracle Made bed sheets.
We do talk about Miracle Made a lot because we enjoy them so much.
It's the thing we're most passionate about, I would say, is because a lot of sheets people don't care about, but you know why?
Why?
Because they don't have NASA-inspired, silver-infused technology.
That's right. They're not temperature regulating. They're not self-cleaning.
They're not antibacterial, so all those people are probably gross. And
Yeah, they're getting their pores clogged and they have breakouts and whatnot.
you're not one of those people, right? Don't do what Donnie Don't does. Instead, switch to Miracle Made sheets.
Yeah, don't be goofus, be gallant.
Gallant uses Miracle Made sheets. Goofus is like, silver in my sheets? Oh. This is great stuff. John and I have both used them.
Yeah, use them still.
We enjoy them. They're luxuriously comfortable, and they're next generation linen bedsheet technology. You don't want to...
They prevent 99.7% of bacterial growth and require, this is great for bachelors, up to 3 times less laundering.
Think of all the time you'll save. So upgrade your sleep this year. Do so by going to trymiracle.com/omnibus. That's trymiracle.com/omnibus to try Miracle Made sheets today.
And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code OMNIBUS at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set.
What?
And save an extra 20%.
I mean, that's a confident company that's like, we're just going to throw in free towels.
Yeah, 30-day money-back guarantee. Try that other towel and sheet company.
A lot of companies are like, we're just going to try to get you. And then once you're locked in, we don't care about you because we have your money. But
Yeah,
Miracle
too
Made
bad.
is like, nope, full refund. We know you're going to love these sheets. So go to trymiracle.com/omnibus today. And remember, that's the code OMNIBUS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off.
Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. That's trymiracle.com/omnibus.
So in 1927, Mayer gets this big, kind of pan-Hollywood group together, the kind of the newly on the grow film industry. And it's really for one reason. He thinks that if he can set up his own private industry group, he can keep unions out.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, there's no guilds. There's no directors guild. The writers aren't unionized. Actors aren't unionized. And the producers are loving this. And he pitches, hey, if we all just kind of worked, if we, the big names kind of got together in smoke-filled rooms and kind of ran the industry in mutually beneficial ways, we wouldn't need these labor troublemakers coming into our town. And of course, all these, millionaires at the table are like, yeah.
So you're saying that the Oscars are not compatible with Marxism?
The Oscars are not even close.
In 1928, the film industry was, only 10 years old?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was, I think Mayer was right. It was inevitable. And it wasn't long before there was a director's guild and a writer's guild and an actor's guild. But at this point, he thought, I can forestall this if I basically create a company union, like a bad capital sanctioned way to control the workers and still make them feel like there is a forum and a voice. And in particular, Mayer thought there wasn't anything for the Academy to do then, but they had big plans. It wasn't just the awards were secondary.
Oh.
The awards were like an auxiliary, but Mayer in the back of his mind was like, you know how you, this is not true of producers, but let me tell you how you keep filmmakers and actors in line. You shower them with awards.
Yeah.
Like if you give somebody a cup or a medal, he'll do anything you say.
Not wrong.
And he would actually say that in interviews to people. Like he's been quoted as saying, you just give actors cups and medals and they'll shut up, And so as a result, the Oscars get created as a power move. And this idea of a splashy banquet where the big names show up and pat each other on the back and face off in categories, that became the model. The Golden Globes start out 15 years later. Then the Tonys in 47, the Emmys in 49, the Grammys not until 58.
Whoa. Well, that's the era of the long player.
Right.
Right? The LP didn't really come into the game until later. And, right, I mean, I guess the 78, you're through it too fast.
I wonder why, but
Automobile.
but there were still, Sinatra and Bing Crosby level celebrities 20 years earlier, but I guess they were getting gold records,
They were
right?
getting gold records.
That was the thing you would put on your wall.
But there wasn't a ceremony. No, I guess there wasn't. The gold record kind of, you always see the gold record being presented at the record company.
There was probably a ceremony, but it was a handshake and a flashbulb going, poof.
Right.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
No audience, no chicken dinner.
No, there was a press conference is what it was. Yeah.
Right. And then there's a big boom in the 70s, mostly because these established shows, the Tonys, the Emmys, and Grammys, they implied, and people found that there was a big mass American audience for these things. And so suddenly Dick Clark is running the American Music Awards because the Grammys got good ratings.
Right.
And the Golden Globes are now on TV, and the People's Choice Awards appear at the same time. And you start to get genre specific, let's, instead of doing the CMA Awards at the Opry, those should be in prime time,
Right.
Why doesn't our Black entertainment station have its own awards?
Right.
And so you get this incredible proliferation.
This is the thing about, I was at Duff McKagan's house at one point because he's a local music person and also is my brother-in-law.
Right, brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Does he have a Grammy?
Well, this is the thing. He's got a trophy case at his house in Seattle, and it has 4 American Music Awards, 1 Billboard Award.
Oh, right, the Billboard
It has 4 MTV Video Music Awards and 2 World Music Awards for some reason, for Guns N' Roses or something. I don't know what.
They're in the world.
But no Grammy Awards, no Juno Awards, no Brit Awards, no Echo Awards or whatever. So there are huge bands
that have
this divot right in the middle where the award you've ever heard of is. But the MTV Video Music Awards were a big deal for 6 years.
Yes.
Right there, that was like
maybe more.
That was a major show.
Do I just think it's more because it coincides with my youth? Maybe.
Yeah, probably. But that was the show you were going to see Cyndi Lauper and maybe not Prince, but for sure. I mean, not that Prince wouldn't have won 1,000 of them, but Prince wouldn't have attended because he's Prince, and that he would have been like, no thanks.
The problem with the Grammys is they're probably giving out 1 or 2 awards in your category of music.
Right.
Like if you're
unless you get best record, best new performer.
There's probably 1 metal Grammy or 2, maybe 1 for album and 1 for song, and Guns N' Roses never won it. Or
right. That's I think the famous Jethro Tull one.
Yeah, first metal.
Or maybe it was Metallica.
It is Jethro Tull, yeah. But then, if you're if you're an alternative band, every year 5 so-called alternative bands were up for Grammys, and Peter Gabriel won every year or something.
Like Billie Eilish, I know this because I went to her show a couple of weeks ago. Billie Eilish won 9 Grammy Awards because, she...
Total or this year?
I think total, but she also has 2 Academy Awards, 3 Brit Awards, 2 Golden Globes, 2 American Music Awards.
And that means Phineas has one for each of those.
Oh, he does. And then 20 Guinness World Records.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That's about to be a big part of the story.
Okay.
Specifically, I bet you did not think the Guinness book was going to pop up, but
I didn't until I was
time.
Thinking about Billie Eilish and was like, that's actually, she has more of those than anything else.
Guinness Book of World Records is very instrumental in the story of the EGOT, and I don't think this is told a lot.
Oh, I had no idea.
Because most people think back to 1984 and Miami Vice star Philip Michael Thomas. Did you remember this part of the story?
No, and until you just mentioned him, I hadn't thought of Philip Michael Thomas in a long time.
If you look up a picture of him, he's now one of these guys that still, he looks like him, young, good-looking self, but he has a huge white beard.
What?
It's
really?
kind of like when you see Michael Stipe now and you're like, oh, that's Michael Stipe. Wait, why does he have a Dumbledore beard?
Okay, I'm looking him up right now. Oh, he's so he's still handsome with the beard.
And he's got a beret, but he's got this, and if you read any interview with him, I think he's a little bit nutty, hopefully in a good way, like just a normal Hollywood way.
I gotta say that the beard improves Philip Michael Thomas just from where I'm standing. He does have the
But would the Miami PD let him rock that beard?
Well, because he'd be captain of the team by this point. He would be Philip. He'd be.
But he'd have to have the close cropped beard like the black guy on 21 Jump Street, right? He couldn't have that Gandalf beard.
Well, unless
ZZ
he
Top
was
beard.
working undercover with
ZZ Top?
Yeah, no, with like some kind of Nation of Islam offshoot where he's playing the role of the Godfather.
Don Johnson was the breakout star of Miami Vice, but his partner, Tubbs, was played by young actor Philip Michael Thomas, kind of a good-looking, smoldering young TV actor. I'm sure he must have done movies or theater around that time, but I can't think of one. But in being interviewed around that time, 84, 85, in People magazine, he talks about how he's got a personal motto, which is energy, growth, opportunity, and talent.
Energy, growth, opportunity, and talent. What?
We're not against any of these things, right?
I know the way that you acronymize all lists.
Acronymize?
Acronymize?
That can't be right.
Every time somebody lists anything, you immediately respond with and I don't know how your brain works because you don't know when someone starts talking that they're going to lay it out as a list.
That I'm about to do something annoying?
Yeah, so the first three things they mention, you can't be already thinking of the first letter of that word, but you do somehow accordion back.
You can go back. You've got a little echoic memory there to access the last few seconds.
Like, boop, 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 boop. Oh, you mean the G6? Why do I keep putting a number in there? The GB2. God, it's just
because Star Wars.
GB2.
You think it's a Star Wars droid? So those four things being his watchword, not coincidentally, also named the four awards that he was telling interviewers that he was going to win in the next 5 years. He was going to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And I don't think there's a one-to-one correspondence. Like, I don't think his energy will win him an Emmy or his growth will be into a Grammy. But, he just has this idea that, he's got this motivational phrase that he came up with and he's very proud of. And it's also a goal because it names the four big show business awards.
And he does those things. He conceivably could win a Tony. He conceivably could win a Grammy because he's a singer and an actor, a play, a theatrical actor.
It seems a little unlikely that he's going to win a Grammy.
But he could, this was at a time when, people were putting out records like
it was spoken word kind of.
Well, that, but also,
like the
Eddie Murphy had a rock record.
Like the Bruce Willis Bruno record.
Right, had a rock record.
Yeah, I'm sure Philip Michael Thomas is thinking, because he doesn't know that America is so deeply racist that Don Johnson will become a star, but he will never get the chance. Didn't Don Johnson have a record? I think he did.
He did. Yeah. He did. I mean, the thing about Tubbs was like he was for sure an American sort of racial poly. Like you could, just by looking at him, you could say like, oh, he's got 11 races in him.
Oh, I see. Like designed in a lab to be Miami diverse.
Yeah, because he's got hazel eyes and he seems like, he's definitely reads as black, but also Latin. And, and that might have been too complicated for people because they were like, well, now, wait a minute. What?
I have to admit, I've never thought much about it.
Which one of the silos are we putting Philip Michael Thomas in?
In 1955, to settle some kind of bar bet over the bird with the biggest wingspan or something, two guys named Ross and Norris McWhorter had started the Guinness Book of World Records.
What year?
I think in the 50s.
Oh,
to settle, so the people arguing in bars could be like, look, no, the Empire State Building is taller. Let's pull this book down from the shelf.
I always assumed it was the Guinness family in a kind of like Nobel Prize way, where they felt guilty about their dark room temperature beer and
all the DUI deaths that Matthew Broderick had caused. Let's see. The connection to the brewery, is it first or second? Let me see. Because the twin brothers, the McWhorters who founded it.
Oh, they have the Mick in front of their name.
Well, they're clearly.
Were they from America, though? Guinness Book of World Records started in America? Is that what you said? They were in a Brooklyn bar?
No, I did not. I believed it was British or Irish.
My head does not go back and remember anything that you just recently said.
Oh, I guess they knew the directors of the Guinness Company, and these guys were always the experts on. It was sports. It wasn't wingspan. It was like people arguing about a soccer record or a consecutive knockouts record or something from sports history. And these were the two pre-bar trivia guys who knew all this stuff. And the Guinness board loved these two trivia freaks who were like, no, it was in 1940. It was Rocky Marciano, So that's how Guinness got involved and decided they would put their imprimatur and get the book published. But I grew up with the Guinness Book of World Records, and I think a lot of kids, and we've talked about this, a lot of kids liked the two fat twins on the motorcycles,
Loved them.
lady with the long fingernails.
Tallest man, shortest man.
Yeah, Robert, whatever. But there was also there was like a parts of the book on arts and entertainment, which again, I'm probably like the straight kid that spent the most time in there being like,
Who won costume design for the most number of times?
it wasn't awards, but it was stuff like that. The longest chorus line, the smallest attendance. Hey, guess what, Mom? This play in Britain had 0 people come, but it ran for 2 weeks. You know, it would be stuff, kind of news of the weird stuff like that.
I always liked like the biggest hot dog or the most cakes or
because a lot of it is like, the biggest quiche or the most of something eaten.
yeah. How long can you chew gum before you pass out?
I spent a lot of time, and a lot of them are like, we're not accepting record holders here anymore for liability reasons.
Because 11 people died.
The guy that ate the car is the first and last guy who ate the car. You can't be the guy who ate 2 cars. But they would have stuff like kind of glitzy showbiz stuff like, who's the highest paid entertainer? And it would be like, well, Dolly Parton just got $400,000 for a single concert. And you'd be like, wow, like,
whoa,
what a glamorous world
It's more than the Beatles.
awaits me on the other side of the Sea of Japan. Well, this is very specific to me living in Korea.
Right. I wonder how many kids in the whole of the world thought to themselves, this Dolly Parton is waiting for me on the other side of the Sea of Japan.
Well, I guess, and then the Pacific. It's probably 2 flights. But one of the things they had, and there was, I remember a page in the arts and entertainment section that had like the most versatile actor. And it was this, I don't know, some commercials actor.
That?
Well, it's just a guy who wears a bunch of prosthetics. Like now he's Einstein. Now he's Napoleon.
Oh, yeah.
Now he's Sherlock Holmes. And I'd be like, wow, look at this talented guy.
I do remember reading the Guinness Book of World Records and going, is this really a world's record? It seems a little bit like you're just making stuff up now.
Most versatile actor? Who's the jury for that? But they had one thing, they had a big splashy thing about versatility in show business awards. And this was because in 1977, something happened where the world took notice of multi-award winners for the first time. Helen Hayes, legendary theater actor Helen Hayes, who had, I think, 2 back-to-back Oscars in the 30s, Broadway legend. There's a theater named after her now. She won a Grammy, which maybe surprised the people who saw her in Airport 75 or whatever that movie was.
Was it for like a cast recording?
Even weirder, it was the year after the bicentennial, and there had been a spoken word album called Great American Recordings, where you could have the pleasure of hearing Orson Welles read the Declaration of Independence and James Earl Jones read the Mayflower Compact. Can you imagine all the moms and dads just snapping this thing up?
Kids,
gather around the gramophone. It's the bicentennial.
It's exactly the kind of record that we did listen to then.
I'm sure your parents owned it. Maybe my parents owned it.
So strange. But, there were all those records kind of for kids that were just Marlo Thomas,
Right.
talking about breakfast cereal.
There'd be a song, but then it would be back to, those records for kids. Maybe Sesame Street songs.
Yeah. There weren't other ways of delivering media.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it was on television, you couldn't do where would you even find it?
There was no VHS. So it was really like if you wanted to have Sesame Street, if you wanted to have the Muppets in your home, you would buy a LP of the Muppets singing.
Yeah.
And there'd be pictures on or if you loved a movie, you'd rush out and you'd get the soundtrack to Mary Poppins or Camelot. That's
we have both things here in our record collection somewhere.
I do too, because I went to the dump on Lopez Island and a lot of boomers were unloading them.
Really? And you just picked up every album?
I was like, hey, Man of La Mancha. And actually, Mindy did, and I was like, really? Man of La Mancha? So Helen Hayes wins a Grammy because she reads the Bill of Rights on this record, and all the narrators win. As you'll know, if you've seen the Grammys and you're like, Nicole Kidman for Peter and the Wolf, Bill Clinton for a different Peter and the Wolf, Oh,
so the record won it, and then every celebrity that was on it.
Yeah, all the narrators won. So Helen Hayes has a Grammy, and the same year, Rita Moreno, West Side Story Oscar winner Rita Moreno, who's also a Broadway fixture. As a result, she has a Tony and a Grammy. She wins an Emmy for her guest appearance on The Muppet Show. So suddenly, for the first time, 2 big names now have all 4 major awards. There must have been some notice of it in press releases, especially the fact that Rita Moreno is like the biggest Latina actress in Hollywood.
Right.
So it's a big thing like, hey, like nobody else has, even Barbara Streisand did not and does not have a real EGOT.
What? Oh, she has an honorary EGOT because that's a separate category. Right?
Yes, she won. The problem is she only ever did 2 Broadway plays. We Can Get It For You Wholesale and Funny Girl. And then she became the biggest celebrity in the world and never did theater again.
Oh, so
she
doesn't have a retroactive Tony.
Nominated for a Tony for both those parts. Never. It's hard to imagine somebody beat her for Funny Girl, but somebody did.
That was the thing. It was Roddy McDowell for some kind of, whatever.
I'm pretty sure.
70s.
Pretty sure it was a woman, but okay.
Oh, right. Best female. Yeah. It still could have been Roddy, but.
Anyway, so Rita Moreno having all 4 is like a miracle. Like no one has done this. And in fact, someone had, but no one knew. So the Guinness Book, it creates this record where they reveal that Helen Hayes and Rita Moreno have awards, and their researchers find out that Richard Rodgers, not the architect, but the composer of Rodgers and Hammerstein fame, actually did win one of these like very early, like in the 50s. He had all 4 and nobody noticed. So for like decades, Richard Rodgers had been an EGOT winner, and even Crockett and Tubbs had no idea.
A legit EGOT winner. None of them were, and I mean that's the thing. I've definitely read this where most of the honorary ones, they have 3 legit ones, and then the last one is a participation.
Well, that's the thing. Like even if it's not an honorary award, when you read about what these people completed their EGOT for, it's always disappointing. Really? Helen Hayes wins the Bill of Rights? Like,
right.
Helen Hayes is an entertainment legend. It's a bummer that she won an EGOT for reading the Bill of Rights on some bicentennial record for public libraries.
Right.
But here we are. And
it's like all the packaging Grammys. I know 3 people that have Grammy Awards for
Grammys.
Best Packaging. And I feel like the second Long Winters record should have been nominated for Best Packaging, and we would have won if not for the fact that we weren't nominated. But
it's all politics.
But no, the thing is, it kind of is. You get nominated by your record label or by, it's not like, you're not nominated by some jury. You're nominated by your label, and then, or at least your name is submitted, and then you're filtered for nomination. But of course, our label was being run out of an Airstream trailer here in Seattle, and it didn't even occur to them to do.
The nomination process for a lot of these awards is very gameable. I'm actually a SAG award nominator now for TV.
Oh. You can nominate people.
I could, yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean there'll be nominees, but my vote will be counted, and it's totally limited to shows I've seen.
I am for the Grammys.
Yeah,
I can nominate people for the Grammys.
Our friend Maria dreams of being a Tony nominator.
Why would she be?
Yeah, despite no connection to she's working on a musical now,
right.
So she would have. But she already knows all these people who are like, oh yeah, I'll nominate you to be a nominator. You have to be nominated to be a nominator. You have to see every show in previews with the actual cast. So if you have to go to everything that plays, you have to go to a preview, and if an understudy is on, it doesn't count and you slink away and have to go back.
That seems like something she would love to do, though.
It's basically already her life.
Right.
I think she gets up every day, goes to the Lincoln Center, TKTS, and sees whatever's $50,
But yeah, that's right. But you have to pay to see all those shows. It's not like you're not comped in.
Oh, that's a good question. I think maybe they do. Maybe that's why she wants to do it. Maybe they do comp the nominating committee.
Oh, right.
And now she's like, I don't want to be a Tony nominee chooser. I actually want to be a voter. So she set her sights much higher, despite still not having any theater credits to her name.
Right. Amy Mann's been working on a musical about boxing for
finally,
as far as I know, 15 years.
Does Amy Mann have a deep love of boxing? And I didn't know this.
She does. In fact, she has an album about boxing.
A concept album about boxing.
But the second time we met was I was in New York and she was there talking to her producers about her boxing musical that at the time, and this is 2009 or something like that, she was already deep into it. They were already like 2 years into talking about it. They had a script. They had them. And
I'm imagining it as an Amy Mann jukebox musical with all her hits.
Right, except
it's boxers singing voices carrying. How is this not already on Broadway?
But I think it's a play. It's a play for because there have got to be a lot of people that have 2 awards.
Yes. And of the EGOT, in the EGOT circle, there's a lot of people with 3 awards. There's 113 people with that are 3/4 of the way to an EGOT, and 73 of them are living.
And how many
It's
EGOTs are there?
Oh, well, let's skip there. So right now, Philip Michael Thomas has nothing to do with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Right.
Philip Michael Thomas has coined EGOT, but really nobody knows except for people kind of chuckling about a People magazine interview they read from years ago. But suddenly all these Guinness Book of World Records kids like me know this fun trivia fact that Rita Moreno has all 4, and she's the only one. And maybe in the back of your mind, you remember Helen Hayes and Richard Rogers also do.
Right. I remember it being a topic of conversation, like Rita Moreno.
I feel like if she showed up on a talk show, the host would mention it. Now, you've got all 4 awards. Here's a picture of you with all 4 of your awards.
Did you know that my dad dated Rita Moreno?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She was here in Seattle doing a show at the Cirque Theater, and my dad was in the show, and the two of them went on a few dates.
I'm trying to remember if you told me this, but I love this.
And
I love this for your dad.
Then one night they came out of the Cirque, and and they were standing there kind of in the shadows, and they were, not canoodling. I don't think even this was dating in the 50s. I don't think there was any canoodling even yet.
Canoodling had not yet been invented.
No, they had gone on a few dates. And then a figure steps out of the shadows, and it's Marlon Brando.
In Seattle?
Yeah. And he's like...
Has he teleported?
Well, no, he was here, I guess, either for some reason or because he and Rita they were dating or they had a falling out.
If you read every celeb biography, there will be some Marlon Brando pursued me for a decade.
Yeah. And so, so they went off, and my dad was left standing there in his narrow lapelled jacket going well,
I tried. That's crazy because my dad dated Cheetah Rivera.
Is that right?
No, he did not.
Oh, well.
That'd be funny though.
Your dad was across the Sea of Japan.
So there were pictures, I think, of Rita Moreno with all 4 of these awards as kind of this part of the culture. And I think she single-handedly, more than anyone, more than Crockett and Tubbs, kind of created this idea, except, as you mentioned, then 30 Rock told the world about it.
Oh, is that where it really exploded? 30 Rock?
In 2009, a 30 Rock writer named Kay Cannon had started to hear in show business circles this EGOT in-joke of people kind of winking at the Philip Michael Thomas thing. And
had Philip Michael Thomas won any of the awards?
I think he might be 0 for 4 still.
I see.
Sadly.
Yeah, that is
which is maybe why he doesn't like to get asked about it today. I've read a couple interviews where he gets a little bit cranky. I read an interview which was held at some 125th anniversary of Thomas's English Muffins. The Thomas Company had brought together famous people named Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Marlo Thomas.
Maybe she was there. Philip Michael Thomas was certainly there, and a reporter tried to ask him about EGOTs, and he was just
threw his drink in his face.
Well, he flirted with her because it was a woman. I think he pinches her cheek and says, "Do you like karate? Do you like movies?" She's like, "What karate? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I'm naming things that are more interesting than EGOT."
Oh, ooh.
So he's a little bit sensitive.
It says here that he voiced the character Lance Vance in the Grand Theft Auto series of video games. So it's not like his career
he might have
disappeared.
An Annie or a Viddy or whatever you get for doing Grand Theft Auto voices. So Kay Cannon has heard this kind of showbiz in-joke on red carpets where people will be like, who's just 2 away from EGOTing now? Or if I win tonight, I'll just be 1 away from an EGOT because people, it's an industry insider thing.
Yeah, sure.
And 30 Rock, a lot of shows were starting to do this thing where enough, that aristocrats joke.
Mm-hmm. The aristocrats, yeah.
Where comedy, the dirty comedy world in joke, that was just all comedians at delis. And then they made a documentary about we started to enter an era where people like to know the inner workings of Hollywood and comedy. And so 30 Rock would put in show business in-jokes into their faux SNL world, right?
Right.
Do you know the Who Jackie? There's a famous story of a mostly apocryphal story of a Roseanne writer who didn't even know the character name saying Who Jackie. I think it's most famously told by Norm Macdonald in kind of a semi-racist accent.
Who Jackie.
And so 30 Rock starts putting Who Jackie jokes into the show.
Those went right over my head.
Exactly.
I never saw them.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, I think, had a whole Who Jackie episode. So they were putting these in-jokes into episodes, and so they decide that their over-the-top kind of unhinged comedian character, their Eddie Murphy / Tracy Morgan-like star, Tracy Jordan, will be obsessed with getting an EGOT.
Right.
And in the show, he has a medallion, right?
He made the medallion first, I think.
Before
he-
knowing what it meant?
Well, no, I think he was like, I'm going to get an EGOT, or no, you know what it was? Was he at a pawn shop? And he was there.
He finds Philip Michael Thomas's old EGOT medallion?
Yeah, he was there to buy a wedding ring or find the wedding ring, some story like that. And then he saw this necklace that said EGOT, and he was like, in fact, I'm going to buy that.
Well, if you don't know, you've only seen 5 TV shows in the 2000s, and it was 30 Rock 5 times.
That's right. That's right. And no, I don't. But that's the thing. I have no recollection really of anything. But I have very little recollection of
what fictional characters are
the
doing
details.
on what's it called? The Girly Show? What's the fake show?
Yeah,
on
the
30 Rock?
Girly Show. But then it becomes TGS with Tracy Jordan. I do remember that. Do you remember the SNL? I'm sure you do. The SNL oral history book.
Yeah,
it was
you
9
got it
feet
upstairs.
long. Yeah,
we both own that book. I
yeah,
think. Tom Shales.
and that was one of the books where it was just like behind the scenes, real people you knew that were stars talking off the cuff about the real problems.
And that was a new genre of book, and now that book exists for everything. Yeah. Here's the story of Billboard. Here's the story of ESPN. Here's the story of The Simpsons.
It was a wonderful read the first time.
I love that book.
Yeah.
It was like Christmas in January in the Jennings household this week because my new box of meals arrived from Factor.
Oh, my friend.
Delicious. It's a new year. I'm ready to optimize my nutrition. Factor, if you need a little refresher to your memory, these are the chef-made gourmet meals that cater to every different health preference. You want calorie smart, you're eating keto, you want a lot of protein. They have menus designed for all those kinds of preferences.
Well, I don't need a refresher because we were chowing down on Factor meals just the other day. We got into a time crunch. We didn't have time to make a long, arduous onion chopping family dinner. And Factor meals are ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes.
Yeah, they've never been frozen, but they show up fully prepared.
Fresh and super good, like way beyond any kind of pre-made meal you would get any other place.
Yeah, let's see, what was in my box this week? Creamy pesto pork chop, chicken, some kind of cheesy garden herb chicken. There were some vegetarian options for my vegetarian kid, some tortellini that he's going to love. It looked great. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, and really does it is like fresh home cooked food.
And they also have smoothies, breakfast, snacks. Like you can do any kind of add-on that matches your lifestyle and however you're trying to eat healthy this year.
So eat smart with Factor, just like Ken and I do, as we've just indicated with our anecdotes about how we're eating this.
It was a little subtle, but I think they got that.
Yeah. We both really like this stuff. And for me, my tendency otherwise would be to just live on popsicles. But Factor is like...
It used to be their old slogan, more nutritious than a popsicle.
So get started at factormeals.com/omnibus5050 off OFF and use the code omnibus50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping.
Again, the code is omnibus50off when you go to factormeals.com/omnibus50off. You'll get half off plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you, Factor.
Thanks, Factor.
2009, the world was kind of ready for this EGOT talk because 8 more EGOTs had been minted. Real quick, in 1991, an 87-year-old Sir John Gielgud appears in an adaptation of a novel called Summer's Lease, I've never heard of, on BBC or Granada or something, and finally wins his Emmy.
Oh.
If you were worried about Sir John Gielgud having an Emmy.
He didn't win it for Paper Chase?
Well, first of all, no, because that's John Houseman.
Oh, right.
And also it's not a TV show.
Oops.
Well, I guess there was a TV show of the Paper Chase.
There was a Paper Chase TV show.
The problem was it had John Houseman and not John Gielgud.
John Gielgud.
His Oscar, well, they both won Oscars just a few years apart for being the stuffy British guy, but Gielgud's is for Arthur.
Right.
With Dudley Moore.
The media.
Oh, there you go. That's the thing we always say in my house. If one of us, if me or Mindy says something boring like, I'm going to go pick up the kids or whatever. The media.
I say it all the time and no one ever gets it.
In 1994, I would be there for you.
I know.
In 1994, because I'm old also. The kids today do not love Arthur so much.
It's so weird.
Not even the sequel one with I don't know. Is John Hodgman in that movie? I think. I
don't know. I don't know. But the thing about it is, one of the things about the 1970s is that watching decrepit alcoholics fall down was a form of kids' entertainment, and it's less so now.
Yeah, today you'd be like, Dean Martin, you need to talk to somebody.
Right. Like this is a sad character, whereas we understood that Arthur was a sad character, but also hilarious. Look how drunk he is.
Then 3 years later, in 1994, the fourth EGOT winner, the first dead EGOT winner, becomes Audrey Hepburn. Who
posthumous.
Cleverly recorded a children's album right before she died tragically young of, I can't remember what it was, some kind of cancer maybe.
Don't know.
And as a result, the Grammy voters were so moved that her children's record won her finally the Grammy she had been missing, completing her. You know, there were these things in sports, right? You'd have the Grand Slam where somebody who won all 4 tennis tournaments.
Yeah, for sure.
Or somebody who won all the batting titles in the same year.
Or the horse. The horse always won the Triple Crown.
So there was this idea that if you could win all of these major awards, that would be a new class of celebrity above the people who have just won a few of them.
Among EGOT watchers, is there a separate sort of lesser sense of actors who win Grammys for spoken word records as opposed to Grammys for music?
Well, there's hardly anybody who wins it for 4 great things.
Right.
You know, Rita Moreno's kind of the exception where like
she was amazing.
She was a legit entertainer in all those things. People loved her on TV, recordings, Broadway, and movies.
Right.
So that's well deserved. You know, it's a bit of an asterisk when Gielgud does this TV show or Audrey Hepburn reads The Velveteen Rabbit.
But it seems like that asterisk happens a lot. It feels like in a way almost, I mean, although the Oscar is the top, right? Don't we always assume that's the top award?
Yes, because there's fewer of them given, and movies, I guess, for some reason seem more prestigious. I mean, music is the only thing that would kind of rival it for cultural adoption.
But 3 of these awards are acting awards, and only one of them is a music award. So it would be easy to win 3 acting awards, but not have any.
Except the music is very integral to theater as well,
right.
and lesser so. You know, in the days of variety TV, super integral to TV, and in the days of big screen musicals, super integral to the movies.
But John Gielgud's like rock record isn't where you would go.
Jethro Tull defeats John Gielgud.
Did Richard Harris win a Grammy for Cake in the Rain?
MacArthur Park?
Yeah.
I'm going to say no.
That's too bad.
At this point, it starts to get devalued a little bit. 1995, Marvin Hamlish wins for a Barbra Streisand concert. He wins his Emmy. You know, he's her longtime composer, way we were. 1997, the first time somebody you've never heard of wins an EGOT. Stephen Sondheim's arranger, Jonathan Tunick, and people are going to be mad at me for saying nobody's ever heard of Stephen Sondheim's orchestration guy.
No one will be mad at you.
But this guy somehow had an Oscar? West Side Story? I don't even know.
Yeah, I bet.
Maybe he did soundtracks also. He probably did soundtracks also. I'm not going to look it up.
That's the thing. You can win music awards in the acting
because there's Best Original Song and
Right.
So in 1997, the same year of the Titanic movie, there was a musical called Titanic on Broadway, which is a very...
Was it also about the boat?
It was about the Lusitania, weirdly. No, it was about the sinking of the Titanic.
But it wasn't just like about somebody's package.
I feel like it... No, it was not. What a weird musical that would be.
I don't know.
Porfirio Rubirosa! Exclamation point.
Super award-winning musicals about like a bunch of junkies living in a house. Like why not?
Why not Milton Berle's Junk?
Yeah,
right?
or Hedwig. That's literally a musical about a package,
but a small package.
Yeah, right.
Famously, it's in the title.
Maybe Titanic. The pitch was it's like Hedwig except
the boat's really big. And it's the kind of thing where I think this musical, I don't think it got mounted on Broadway because of the Jim Cameron movie, but it sure didn't help ticket grosses. Why would she say that again? Oh, mounted.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took me so long.
Going back to
It took me so long. See, you can do the echoic memory.
I'm Ken Jenningsing.
But then in the 2000s, the thing happens that makes people start talking about it on red carpets. Some big stars start winning legit EGOTs. Mel Brooks moves the producers to Broadway.
Good man.
He already had his Emmy, his Oscar, and his Grammy for his 1,000-Year-Old Man records or whatever those were. Right. I'm not a 1,000-year-old man, so I can't remember the date. Right. 2,000? 5,000?
Beats me.
he becomes a Grammy winner for the producers. Mike Nichols, previously, a big
Tony winner.
Yeah, big Broadway director. He directed everything from Barefoot in the Park on up, and then movies like The Graduate and Virginia Woolf. He already had everything except he did not have an Emmy. But this is now the age of prestige TV.
Oh yeah.
So they adapt the Judith Light play, Wit, the one-woman play by what's her name, Margaret Edson. HBO does an adaptation. It's a beloved play. Mike Nichols has to do almost nothing because it's Emma Thompson in a hospital bed, but he wins an Emmy. And so these legends, Mel Brooks and Mike Nichols, now are EGOTs. And that's the kind of thing that appears in headlines next to their awards. The following year, the same year, Whoopi Goldberg becomes the first African-American EGOT winner, although that one's a little bit bull. She hosted an AMC special about Gone with the Wind star Hattie McDaniel, who played Mammy.
And won an Emmy for it.
Just for hosting. The 4 producers and the narrator won the Emmy. So now you've got the first black winner, you've got big stars, legends like Mel Brooks and Mike Nichols. You can see why EGOT people, Hollywood people are talking. And then there's a gap of a decade where nobody else EGOTs.
You're kidding.
Right.
Because EGOT then at some point becomes like a top line in their obituary.
Yes.
Right? It's the first thing that somebody says.
Because to this day, there are not very many. There's now 21 of them.
Isn't that all?
Yeah, and that's with EGOTflation. Like,
I don't know why I sound like Jiminy Glick. Is that all?
Martin Short still does not have an EGOT. And again, it's not based on merit. It's not the people you would think. Like, of the new 11 who have become EGOT since EGOT was a 30 Rock word and a meme.
Right.
Almost all of them are composers.
Oh, sure.
It's Andrew Lloyd Webber, Elton John and Tim Rice both are EGOT now. Robert Lopez is the EGOT.
Do we know any of
Alan
them?
Menken.
Is there anybody that we know that has an EGOT?
No, I don't even think it's anybody I've met. Let me look.
Well, Quincy Jones has one. But wait, there is
Quincy
a separate
Jones
category,
yes.
non-competitive EGOT.
Because I think all 4 of these awards do give out special honorary awards, not in competitive categories. And so the other day I was having dinner with a friend and he had won.
John Legend has an EGOT?
Yeah, and his is legit.
Whoa, dude. But all these things are since 2006, which there has to be an EGOT Guinness winner who has the most recent EGOTs. Because a lot of these are like the first award they got was in the 70s.
Like some of the biggest names are non-competitive, like Liza Minnelli and Barbra Streisand still just have the Harry Belafonte and Quincy Jones. These are all, there's some lifetime achievement or some honorary award propping up their EGOT.
I have never met any of these people. So
I went to dinner with a friend who had won I don't know what you call it, some kind of special Tony for his one-man show. And I was congratulating him and telling him I was like, I think you're not EGOT ineligible, as a comedian, you act, you write, you're the whole Megillah, you do theater, like you could, and he's like, I actually am not a quarter of the way there. It's an honorary Tony. I'm like, no, come on. Honorary Tony counts. And he's like, it absolutely does not. And
this is like your bacon Erdosh.
Exactly. He's well aware that he is not a quarter of the way to a Tony. He's a quarter of the way to an honorary Tony, which is not so bad. It's also what James Earl Jones has.
I was talking to somebody at your Christmas show
Christmas party?
Your Christmas party, sorry.
Your Christmas party at your house. Musicians. When it's at a house, we non-musicians call it a party, but yeah, it's like a Christmas show.
I was talking to somebody who was like, I grew up knowing Kevin Bacon. I was on the set of Footloose.
I don't know which of my friends grew up on the set of Footloose.
Well, it's the brain scientist.
I know who it is. Yeah. Corey, because his dad worked at New Line.
His dad worked at New Line, and he said, "So, do I have a Bacon number?" And I was like, "I don't think so. You have to be credited." Yeah. And he said, "Well, I saw extra, but I wasn't credited, and they cut me, so I'm on the cutting room floor."
Yeah, I feel like if he was in the movie, I would say he has a Bacon number, even if he's not in the credits.
Yeah,
but if his scene gets cut,
it was cut.
Yeah. But talking to my friend, there's been some EGOTflation. Now that Sondheim's a Ranger, and as you say, John Legend, and then the Dear Evan Hansen guys now both have EGOTs.
Who?
they composed the Broadway show Dear Evan Hansen, but they also do musicals like La La Land and The Greatest Showman. So these two composers that non-Broadway nerds have never heard of, now have the exact same EGOT that Rita Moreno or...
I see. Composer, lyricist,
Brooks
producer is how they're described.
Yeah. And there are still people winning legit ones, like Viola Davis, like... With somebody like Alan Menken, he had 8 Oscars and did not have... For all those Disney soundtrack scores, and he did not have a Emmy. And he was so mad that he started writing a song called the EGOT song, thinking like, can I get this on TV and can I get people to vote for this song just to give me an EGOT? But you got to be more impressed by somebody like Viola Davis, who just has like basically one of each. I guess she has 2 Tonys, but she has 1 Emmy, 1 Oscar, 1 Grammy, and then 2 different August Wilson Tonys. Like that's almost more impressive. You know, like she never misses.
Right.
But there's been a little bit of EGOT inflation. It's easier to get EGOT today for a few reasons. Like, it was just Rita Moreno and Helen Hayes for decades, and then Richard Rodgers, but nobody knew.
But like you say, there are 400 more Emmys than there ever were.
That's part of it. There was one Emmy in 1948, 6 the next year. By 1959, there were 32 Emmys. Today, there are hundreds.
Yeah.
There's that best promotional behind the scenes video Emmy that counts just as much as Kevin Costner for Yellowstone. There were 22 Grammys when it started. Today there's 94 burgeoning categories, and that probably does not include the Latin Grammys. So you've got a lot of different things like that. Also, more time has passed, You have to remember that
you could have won an Oscar in 1970 and still be alive.
I was not alive. I only missed 15 Grammys, and then I was born, and now there have been 50 Grammys. Like awards history is so recent. And there's more cross-pollination now, like, HBO mounting adaptations of Broadway straight play hits. That suddenly Mike Nichols has an Oscar, and Angels in America would not have been a TV show, 10 years before that. More winners per award. Whoopi Goldberg being the narrator of her Hattie McDaniel show. But the big difference, there's something called Goodhart's Law. A British economist in 1975 named, I assume, Goodhart. I think Charles Goodhart said that...
I really thought it was about people winning awards for having a good heart.
Wouldn't it be great if there was a Goodhart award? Yeah. I would just monopolize it every year. It wouldn't be fair. Charles Goodhart famously said, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a measure.
Oh.
So he's an economist.
Now it's a goal.
Yeah. Once governments know that everybody's comparing some economic indicator, some market indicator, you can try to game that to make the economy look rosier than it is.
See.
And that's true in other fields. Like it's the same way, cops just stop replying to crimes because then their case closure rate goes up. Because they didn't take on the unsolvable property crimes.
Right. They're trying to clear the murder board.
And it happened in the last election. Now that everybody follows poll aggregators obsessively, like people just flood the zone with kind of garbage polls to try to skew that.
Yeah, right.
So until, once something is not an indicator, it's valuable. And then like Heisenberg, as soon as people start knowing about it, it gets messed up. And that's kind of true of awards, and it's kind of true of the EGOTs. My friend who has the special Tony was like, Tony's the easiest one to get. Because I think I told him, you got the Tony, that's the hard one.
Yeah.
And he's like, first of all, I have the honorary one. Second of all, Tony is the easiest.
Wow, really?
And I was like, that can't be true. How can the Tony be the, like Broadway? That's like...
Yeah, right.
And he said, well, here's what people do now. And I didn't know about this, but somebody asked Andrew Lloyd Webber in an interview, like, how do you get an EGOT like you? And he's like, well, the Tony's the easiest. What I tell my friends is, there's only going to be like 10 musicals this season. Invest in all of them.
Oh, and then you're a producer.
Yeah, just give whatever the minimum. I don't know what it might depend on. It might. I don't know if it's a Tony rule or a Broadway rule, but yeah, just give some low 5-figure amount to all 10 musicals, and apparently, like, I'm not going to say that this is how they won, but Whoopi Goldberg and Jennifer Hudson, both of their Tony Awards are just some show they produced. Whoopi gave some money to Thoroughly Modern Millie. Jennifer Hudson gave some money to A Strange Loop. And when I guess the Tony goes to every single producer above a certain.
Wow.
So that's the one that can be bought.
Gamed.
Yeah. Oscar,
Harder.
a little bit harder. But if anybody out there is listening who is an EGO, let me see.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are more expansive ones. Lots of EGOT people have Golden Globes. So
Yeah, that's
you'd
right.
be an EGOT.
And you can get a Pulitzer sometimes if you're a writer.
A PGOT. There's one REGOT, somebody who has the Razzie Awards that are given out for the worst
That's
things.
pretty smart.
The only one with Liza has a Razzie for maybe Arthur 2 on the Rocks.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've just said, her EGOT is not competitive.
Right.
But Alan Menken, the Disney guy, he has a Razzie for a song from Newsies.
Oh.
Apparently the Razzies do worst song.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To mirror the Academy.
Did I talk to you about my awards pursuit?
What award are you pursuing?
Well, the thing is, I wrote a song with Amy Mann on her Grammy-winning record, Mental Illness.
Right. That's why you have
That's why I have the empty
the
Grammy
negative
case
space of a
upstairs.
Grammy. Yeah.
But I was under the impression as a member of the Grammy board that there was a certificate for being a songwriter on a Grammy record.
Any record that wins a Grammy, all the songwriters should get a piece of paper.
I thought.
Okay.
And I also won a SOCAN award, which is the Canadian Industry Award for Best Song for a song I co-wrote with Kathleen Edwards. And at one point this year, I was sitting around. Oh, you know what it was? Death Cab for Cutie got a platinum record for Transatlanticism, and I sing on one of the songs on Transatlanticism. So I was sitting
Is there
here.
a certificate for that?
Well, there's a platinum record, Ken, like a freaking platinum.
But not for every backup singer.
Well, this is the thing. So I start seeing on Instagram all these people getting this platinum Death Cab record that were like the publicists and people that worked at the label, people that were, there's like, I'm seeing 40 Death Cab platinum records on Instagram for people, and I know what they did, and some of them were just sitting at a desk somewhere in Hollywood, and some Death Cab thing came across their desk, and they signed it and sent it on, and they have a platinum record on their wall. And so I said, well, now wait a minute, I actually sang on that record. I should get one of these things.
Yeah.
And I reached out to my label rep, and he was like, yeah, they cost $700.
It's like the Emmys.
And I said, well, you guys are all millionaires. And he said, yeah, well, And so then I was like offended.
Yeah.
Because my wall of awards definitely has like Seattle Weekly's award for best tweet of 2007 and like America or
you need to class that shelf up.
yeah, like Ballard's best coffee drinker. And so I called people at the Grammys and I was like, I'd like my certificate. And they got back to me with an email and they said, actually, the certificate only goes to people that worked on the record, not the songwriters.
Oh, because they consider the song and the recording two different things.
Two different things.
I forgot that about the Grammys.
And they were like, it's the Recording Academy, not the Writing Academy.
And there are still songwriting Grammys, I think, but I guess you didn't win that one.
Different. And so they were like, no certificate for you. And then I contacted the people in Canada and I said, hey, what about my SOCAN award? It's like a real thing. I didn't never get a trophy. I didn't attend the thing. And they wrote back and said, all the people that worked at the SOCAN Awards in 2011 are all dead now. And the ones that are still alive, they only speak French. And so, I don't know. Your trophy probably ended up in somebody's desk and then it got thrown out in the move. So no SOCAN award for you. And so I printed out all the letters that said, you don't get one of these. And I thought, well, I'm just going to frame these and put them in
awards.
my downstairs bathroom is just going to have all these rejection letters.
People explaining to you why you don't have an award.
Yeah. And then someone just the other day wrote me and said, yeah, well, okay, so the Death Cab's management decided they were going to send you one of these just, because shut up. And I was like, I didn't want one that was like a sad one. I don't want a sad trombone. But actually, the guy from the label took me to Pichet. There's a big framed platinum record
Hey.
that has my name on it. And we opened it up at Pichet.
Wait, it's actually a record, not a certificate?
It is a actual platinum record, and opened it up at our favorite French restaurant, and everybody in the restaurant, it was the middle of the day, so everybody was 20 people.
All the tourists at Pike Place cheered.
We all gathered around, and everybody was like, "Yay!" And I had a little, they put on a little ceremony for me.
I guess I've seen those hanging in studios, so I did know that engineers, etc., did get platinum records.
Yeah, they shoot them out of a cannon for people that worked on it.
But high harmonies, no. Nobody cares.
And so now I do have one that is like pretty impressive. It's actually in the bathroom upstairs here, but you don't use the restroom when you come.
That's the power move, is to put it, like, I'm sure Kate Winslet's Oscars are all in the...
They're all in the bathroom.
I have a book that has, like, interviews with Oscar winners, and everybody's like, it's in the bathroom.
Yeah. And
because there's a mirror there, so guests can, like, hold it up and be like, I'd like to thank...
all the people I know that have multiple of these gold and platinum records, they're all in their downstairs bathroom. And the whole thing is just like, oh, those old things? I didn't know where to put them. They look weird in the living room.
I had wall space in the bathroom.
I'm like, you guys suck. But now I have one in my bathroom. So even though I never have anybody over here, and you, because of some religious thing, never use my bathroom here.
I know I never use the bathroom.
And you never,
it goes against God to
food.
to excrete from those parts.
You just reabsorb it.
Exactly.
And that's what gives you your power.
Like all righteous souls.
Yeah. But anyway, so I do have one thing now that isn't either homemade or a consolation prize.
Do you feel like it was kind of a consolation prize, though?
For sure. For sure. And I actually had lunch the other day with one of the guys from Death Cab, and he did not mention it, and I did not mention it. So,
because they had to pay, probably.
Well, and I'm not even sure they know. I think it might be somebody in their office.
It might dilute the honor if they thought that you had one.
Well, or not that, but I think the person in the office was like, God, Roderick is such a pain in the ass. He's always been a pain in the ass, and now he wants a platinum record. But they actually paid the $700 because it's completely legit. It says presented to John Roderick for his contributions to them. And yeah, I did more on it. I did more to support Death Cab than some publicist.
The publicists get one?
Yeah, for sure they do. But I opened for them on that whole tour. So like every night I consoled them as they cried in their freaking beer about how much money they were making.
You don't get an Oscar for consoling people, right?
I bet you do. I bet you there's a category. And that concludes the EGOT, entry 398.AC2810, certificate number 42952 in the omnibus. Futurelings, social media also probably has 3 or 4 different awards ceremonies now.
I have no
idea. For
idea.
like best social media something. I know for sure they do.
The TikTokies?
I bet you there's like content creator super awards now. And we are not going to win any of those either because I barely am on there. I lost my Facebook account the other day because I couldn't figure out my 2-factor authentication. So it's over there. And things that I post on Instagram port over to my Facebook account. So I'm continuing to contribute to it, but I can't access it. And people are commenting on my posts and they're DMing me over there and I got no idea.
That's good.
It's just like it's like a dead zone.
It's like you're in a coma. Like everyone's still surrounding you. I think he can still hear us. I think if we read to him, he'll like it.
People are going, John, you should call me. I have this great opportunity for you. I'm like, try me on LinkedIn. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Ken is on Blue Sky and Mastodon and all those things, still just being as funny as he ever was.
So not very, like a 3.
But you can email us, which is a form of electronic communication that does still exist, and I presumably will keep existing. What's funny is every year a new John Roderick is born, but that John Roderick will always have to be John Roderick 12. At something, or John Roderick 42, or John Roderick 69.
Yeah.
Because there will, because I still have it until the day I die, and they'll keep it alive for my
It's better than a platinum record.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Your name as the leading thing.
Yeah, an email address or whatever, a username is unique.
I have johnroderick.com, and whoever that real estate agent is in New Zealand named John Roderick, he has to be johnroderickrealestate.com. You can hang out with other Futurelings on Facebook, and I will never see it. Ken will now be the only one that comments snarkily. And you can mail us things to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155. Ken has brought some mail.
Let's see what we got here. Oh, well, we're recording this belatedly, which means we're getting Christmas cards from people.
Oh, how sweet. Here's
some sweater-wearing kids. Thank you. Happy holidays to the Gettys. The Gettys sent us a Christmas card.
Oh, that's nice.
Our traveling correspondent, Sparky, tried out the new zip code, 98133. He says he's not traveling. He was home all year.
And did Sparky send that in March?
98133 appears to be the good one. But,
okay.
But 98155 I think is the best one because the P.O. box still starts with a 55. He says now that he likes staying at home. I assume he's in Providence, Rhode Island, where this postcard is from.
Mm-hmm.
But he says he used to send us more postcards when he traveled. So I guess his gain is our loss. And finally, we got a card that says, "Are you trash?"
No.
Oh, but there's a
God
twist.
don't make no trash.
But there's a twist. Look, inside there's a trash panda saying, "Because I just can't get enough."
Oh, a little washing bear.
He loves us. And Micah sent us, a mill. Didn't we talk about this? These coins that are like the 10th of a cent. I can't tell where this is from. I'm now use my cell phone flashlight years old. Oh, it's a Mexican coin. The Mexican mill.
1/1000th of a peso?
I'm wrong. It's New Mexico. That makes more sense.
New Mexico.
But it still says Bureau. Oh, it's of. I thought it said Bureau de Revenue. It's just of. So New Mexico apparently at some point minted a 10th of a cent coin. Mm-hmm. And he sent me this.
Well, I guess a cent is already 100th of a thing. So a 10th of a cent.
This would be 1,000th of a dollar.
I see.
It's you can tell it's aluminum. They're very light. Mine says, "Millionaire schmillionaire, now you're a mill-air." Mm-hmm. And yours says, "The Tooth Fairy asked me if I could make change for this."
Oh, well, I'm going to put it in a frame up here on my wall of shame.
It's a little smaller than a platinum record, but I guess it's the same size. Thank you so much, Micah, and all the rest.
The movie star and the rest. One thing I would like to add on our way out here is that the opportunity to contribute to our Patreon is still open. You're
so lucky.
We still allow it, and we encourage you to get in before we close the door. And Patreon contributions are no longer allowed. So this is your big chance in the new year to jump on this opportunity and go to patreon.com/omnibus project. And for the low price of $5 a month, although not limited to $5 a month, could be $50 a month. If you just had an IPO and you basically designed your company while listening to Omnibus.
It is not compatible with Marxism to not give.
Yeah, I would say that we deserved a producer credit on your IPO, and you could give us each 10,000 shares. That makes sense. Not through Patreon.
Do you want shares?
Yeah, you always want shares.
Options?
Yeah, think about what Donald Sutherland would have made if he had taken a percentage of Animal House instead of his $20,000 payment.
That's your story, Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, Donald Sutherland would have made $20 million or something if he'd taken what they offered, 1% of the movie.
I want cash. You can send John your stock options.
Yeah, send me the shares. That's patreon.com/omnibus project.
I'm looking at this list of people who are one award away from a EGOT, and it's pretty funny because you're imagining when will Eminem get that Tony?
I could see an Eminem Tony any day.
There could absolutely be a jukebox musical, right?
For sure.
It would just be 8 Mile. I mean, it's a little late for most of the people without the Emmy because they're all dead. Like Henry Fonda, never getting an Emmy.
Oh, that's too bad.
You can tell the Emmy is the devalued one because that's the one that only dead people are missing. Like everybody else has an Emmy. Some of these are imminent.
You think it's for sure on its way?
Yeah, like Lin-Manuel Miranda doesn't have an Oscar. Cynthia Erivo is only missing an Oscar, and she is probably a lock to be nominated for Wicked this year.
Uh-huh.
So that could easily happen.
I wonder if the last award if the people at that ceremony are very aware of the EGOT and they want to mint EGOT.
They want to be there.
Or do they want to deny an EGOT?
Well, I
like
think
you say, it's no longer a measurement.
the press knows, so I think there's lots of red carpet conversation if it's like, Kristen Anderson Lopez, like, if you win tonight, this will be your EGOT. What do you think? So it's definitely in the media.
What do you think the number of EGOTs is where it passes the threshold where it's no longer that big of a deal? Nobody cares anymore. 500 EGOTs, or is it 100?
What did I say? There were 21 now,
21.
plus the honoraries?
If it gets to be 100 and like fully 40 of them you've never heard of.
It's always going to be pretty rare, I
Yeah.
think, even though there has been, it's easier now with more awards. So it's always going to be just a few a decade, probably.
Right. So it'll always be a thing.
There's lots of people that are short a Grammy, but most of them are dead. Let me see.
I'm rooting for Eminem.
This does not seem like a complete list. Is this a complete list?
Why has nobody made an 8-mile like Broadway show? It basically sells itself.
Al Pacino. Al Pacino just needs a Grammy. What do you
We
think?
gotta get Al a Grammy.
Or Helen Mirren. I can't believe Helen Mirren has not already just been narrating The Velveteen Rabbit, right?
Did William Shatner win a Grammy for his spoken word, or Leonard Nimoy?
Shatner might be 0 for 4.
Yeah.
Like the rest of us. You and I might be tied with William Shatner. Listeners,
But I have an empty Grammy.
That's true. Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.